Um, Welcome to our webinar series on sustainability campaigns that make a difference. I'm Idiane. I'm an associate partner at 3B Impact. I'll be hosting today's session where we'll discuss the circular economy. We have 1 hour with 3 inspiring speakers who will share their experience, which we hope will help you dodge a few bullets on your journey to creating great campaigns. I'll give you a brief overview of what we'll be covering in this session. We have 5 key blocks. We'll start by discussing our topic, the circular economy. Then each of the speakers will give you a brief view of a great campaign that they've run. And we'll talk then about what it takes to create a great campaign, so getting to that practical how-tos. We'll talk about the trends that are emerging, that they're seeing, and that maybe they'll be applying in their future work. And last of all, of course, we'll have a Q&A. Feel free to send messages as we go along through the chat function. Just please send them to everyone. We have one designated person who'll be collating all of the questions, and we'll get to them at the end. If I can ask everyone to stay on mute and perhaps have their cameras off throughout the session, just so we don't run into any bandwidth issues. We can turn cameras on at the end for a quick chat if we've got the time and everyone is interested in staying on to have a conversation. Without further ado then, let me introduce our speakers. We have Jorge Soto, who is the Director of Sustainable Development at Braskem, a major petrochemical and plastics producer. I had the privilege of being in Jorge's team for 5 years at Braskem a few years ago, and I can personally testify that his 30 years of experience are being put to very good use there, where he's constantly driving change with bold initiatives like the creation of the I'm Green polyethylene, which is a plant-based plastic which has a net negative carbon footprint. So basically it captures more CO2 than it emits in its life cycle. We've worked together on some pretty great stakeholder and employee engagement campaigns, if I can say so myself. And I'm really pleased that he's here to share some of his knowledge and experience and also talk a little bit more about the recent efforts Braskem is making in the circular economy. We also have Aitomaki from Plastic Change. We're very excited to have her. She's the Director of Systemic Change, and we've worked with them seeing firsthand the work that they're doing and driving the transition to the circular economy. Anna has a wealth of experience from public, private, and NGO settings, and she's using that to develop really innovative ways to address plastic pollution. She's leading a movement to engage people on the topic and designing strategic storytelling campaigns to get that excitement up. She's a strong advocate for challenging the way we currently think about production and consumption, looking to eliminate linear resource thinking. She'll tell us a little bit more about shortly. And in addition to her role at Plastic Change, she's also a member of the steering committee of #BreakFreeFromPlastic, which is a global movement envisioning a future free from plastic pollution. Our third panel member is Graham Pewter, who's the chair of the board at Movement, who are our sponsors. Graham and I, in our respective roles at Movement and 3B Impact, have been working together on developing and piloting employee engagement campaigns, and it's been an honor for me to benefit from Graham's lifelong career learnings from the insurance sector. He's presided over a range of different companies and still contributes to the sector as an independent director. He has been interested in corporate sustainability for quite some time. In his last CEO position at Catlin Group in Bermuda, a major insurance company, they funded a large project on ocean health, which included mapping and recording the health of coral reefs, which is obviously a very strategic topic to the company because of the connection to climate change and adverse weather events, which affect claim costs and profitability. So moving into our first topic, the circular economy, and thinking also about the role of plastic within that. I wanted to start asking Anna to tell us a little bit about, what is the circular economy?
Yes, hi, and thank you, Idiane, for that wonderful introduction. So for us at Plastic Change, the circular economy, it's a lot about waste prevention. It's a way where we work within, you could say, the planetary boundaries of this earth, where we respect natural resources, where we have taken, the current economy, which is very linear, based on the take, make, waste. And also the waste is, that's a way that we generate so much waste, which is, obviously it's not sustainable. Every year we're using the resources of the earth earlier and earlier. And we have to, start producing and consuming in a very different way, where we design much more to, protect and expand the lifetime of the product and the resources that we engage with. So for us, it's about mostly waste prevention.
Fantastic. And when we get there, when we're in a circular economy, what will life look like?
It will look very different from what we're used to now, because now we're used to having all this waste around us. We don't barely even notice it. And that's just the way that things have developed over the 50 years with the linear economy. But in this new economy, and we always talk about, we need to produce less, we need to consume less. And that sounds, in a way, it sounds really boring. But I mean, we're not about it's about consuming better. It's about consuming more responsibly. And we can do that if we change the systems, because we don't want people to obviously they're not going to give anyway up their lifestyles and the convenience that we have now. So we have to figure out, how can we have a more sustainable convenience culture. And we definitely see that that's a place where we have designed different systems where we don't have a lot of single-use items and packaging that is now just becoming waste, that is difficult for the world to manage. So it will be better consumption with respect for the natural resources.
Fantastic. And Jorge, what about from Braskem's point of view? What's the company's understanding of the circular economy, of its role in it? Why is Braskem working on this at all? I think you might be on mute, Jorge.
My apologies.
Oh, there we go. It wouldn't be a webinar if we didn't have this happen sometimes.
Yeah, it's true. I was saying that the way that we see circular economy is very similar to what was described by Annie. And for us, is to work on the design in the way we produce, the use, recycling, recover this. Well, the new way of dealing with the resources, and I think that is where we would agree that we should change that. And we are working with clients, with the technology development of new products. In fact, as you mentioned it, we developed a circular way of producing coming from renewables, or for plant-based, as you mentioned, bio-based, other products that are used in the value chain, and new business model, etc. A lot of things that we're even including the relationship with the consumer side. We are working with some NGOs to discuss with them what is the responsible consumption way of doing. So this is a way that we see circular economy. And why we are doing that? Because we understand that plastics are part of the solution for our day-by-day life. In this moment, I use a plastic jack, and I'm sure that we are in this moment using the computers that have plastics, a lot of solutions that come from plastic, but these solutions could be undermined if we don't have a good way to deal with the end of life of the plastics, or if we do in a wrong way. So in some countries that is happening, so we should deal with that. And so Braskem decided to be part of the solution for that. We're investing in development of new products for the last part of the cycle also. We have produced last year 9,000 tons of plastic with the recycled content. Imagine a petrochemical that was always linear. We are now producing circular products. This is in the end of life also, not just in the beginning. So this is why, and we are committed to produce 300,000 by 2025 and 1 million tons by 2030. So we decided to do that in a very concrete way.
Fantastic, thank you. In terms of getting people involved with that though, right? So when we're thinking, for example, about eliminating waste, and for Braskem producing recycled plastic, you can't, all of the employees aren't involved with that. So let's talk a little bit about one of the ways to get them involved in these strategies, which are these campaigns that you guys have run. I wanted to start with asking Graham to share with us a little bit about the sort of the movement purpose platform and how it fits in with all of this. So, you know, how it can be used to run campaigns.
Thanks, Ediane, and it's a pleasure to be with everyone today. Movement is a software development company that was founded several years ago by two documentary film producers, Kim Carter and Zabi Yakin. And they wanted to find a way to harness those emotions we all feel when we watch film on issues we care about, but where there's no immediate and available call to action. So to harness those good intentions. So they conceived of and started to build an online platform for social issues content where people can learn more and then take action at the height of that engagement that I was referring to. Now, the first phase of development has been to launch an enterprise product where organizations can run video-based campaigns for employees on issues that are at the heart of their values and corporate culture, which might, for example, in this context, provide ways for employees to work on the challenges we all face on this journey to a circular economy. And as we know, one of the most visible problems created by today's consumption model is the huge garbage patches that are floating around our oceans that are getting bigger and bigger by the day. So we have developed actually a campaign on marine plastics, which not only encourages people to clean up marine waste, but also encourage them to rethink their consumption habits, for example, by switching to zero waste products. We also have campaigns about protecting marine ecosystems that are being impacted by unsustainable practices. We have one, for example, on the ocean's seagrasses. But I thought the best way to, a visual guide is better. So I thought I'd show you what campaigns look like. And at the heart of each campaign is an interactive video. So here's a very quick look at what we're developing for our marine plastics campaign. And then after that, we'll look at the actual movement platform itself.
Welcome to the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Locals call it Soup City. Water so thick with microplastics, you can't see past your own fins. This harpoons you right in the gut. Take a good look round, partner. What do your eyes tell you? Time's up. Let's see what you remember.
Now that's a lead into some interactive functionality. Now we'll have a look at the actual movement platform.
The first thing you see is the campaign video. In this case, the subject matter is seagrasses. And below the video is a card for each action a user can take. These actions are actually embedded in the video itself. This section provides more information related to the campaign itself. And at the bottom, there's a discussion board where you can connect with colleagues, share experiences, or organize activities. The platform keeps track of all of the actions you sign up for, and you can see a summary on your impact page. And there it is. On our team page, you can see company level data with all employee actions aggregated and displayed. The page also includes video messaging from company leadership, which supports and encourages teams. All actions taken on our platform earn points, which are tracked onto a leaderboard, which can be used to foster friendly competition. And that's the movement platform.
Fantastic. Thanks, Graham. We'll come back a little bit to some of the campaigns in a bit. I wanted to show everyone a campaign from Braskem and one from Plastic Change also. So starting off with Braskem's, we also have a video from them so we can actually see the campaign, and then Jorge can tell us a little bit more about the campaign and what's the secret behind it.
being a part of a nonprofit or volunteer work or community-based work, we want to do things that have an impact.
Essa é uma grande oportunidade. Estou aqui adorando, sorrindo, ver tudo isso que nós deixamos para essas pessoas.
Not only this is good, but it's actually a really fun activity for everyone.
Eu achei muito importante a iniciativa dele, com essa integração, parece que se conhecia há 20 anos.
El voluntariado de por sí es la energía capaz de resolver cualquier problema social y ambiental.
O retorno para a gente como pessoa é muito mais gratificante do que para quem recebe.
Hemos logrado como compartir esse entusiasmo, essa energia.
Isso é como se fosse uma grande família, é todo mundo sorrindo, compartilhando, dividindo.
Lo hacemos sin recibir nada a cambio, lo hacemos por una causa buena y nos sentimos muy orgullosos de eso.
I'm not on mute. Okay. I thought I was on mute. So yes, that is the 2019 edition of your volunteering program, isn't it, Jorge? And can you tell us what's the secret to getting these levels of engagement and enthusiasm? Braskem has about 8,000 employees, right? And you had 4,000 volunteers. So I'm assuming between employees and community members are all volunteering together, but that would kind of, mean you've got a very, very significant number of people in the company participating, right?
Yeah, we have 1 in 4, so about 25%. It was a great engagement. And I'll say that there's no secret about how to get engaged the team members. I'll say that the main aspects are to be, this should be seen credible. This should be seen integral part of our strategy. It should be seen as one company, as one individual that are connected together with the same long-term purpose. So we have a strategy and that consider all of this. So as I mentioned, we are working with to reduce the plastic residues. We're working in Braskem, we are working to engage and to increase improve the economic situation of the people. We are doing that. So when we call the team members to engage in a volunteer program, they are seeing that in the company. So they I'm willing to engage on that. I think that is the main aspect. So to be credible, and we of course we use some updated like gamification. So that was the idea of the volunteer was developed using we call in Brazil gincana. That's about a challenge that all of them are invited to collaborate the most. In the most they collaborate, the teams win points, and the points that are they won are related to the Braskem strategy. This is interesting. We have a set of goals, long-term goals, and the more they work with those kind of dimensions, the better they have points. The best they have. So at the end, the best team members are recognized at the end of the meeting year. We have a meeting with the top level administration leaders, and they are invited to participate. So there is a relationship with the strategy, the winning of the people, integrity. So I think these are the secrets.
So that it's not a standalone campaign on something random. It's basically something that forms part of your strategic sustainability program. And in essence, it's a way for people to get involved in delivering that strategy.
Yeah. And we conclude delivered. So you saw that.
Yeah. No, it's great. Anna, you've also sent us a fantastic video about a campaign that you guys have run. So we'll run that video and then you can tell us a little bit about how that campaign went. That looked like fun. Tell us a bit more about this campaign, Anna. And can I join?
Sure. Hopefully next year after COVID and everything. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun, and it was also really interesting. So this was a campaign that we did 2 years ago in collaboration with Tuborg, which is a beer brewing company, and also with the 4 largest music festivals in Denmark. And basically what we wanted to do was, go into this whole, how can we prevent single-use waste? Because at a festival, you create a lot of waste. And one of the larger items is the beer cup. So this is where you go into the core business, because Tuborg, they're in the market to sell beer, but their product, the beer, leaves a lot of waste. So how can we change that when we talk about this, no more single use, reduce the waste amounts? And this, we need to get, into the core of the business, because you couldn't have done this without, Tuborg being able to say, okay, let's try and change our core business. Let's, help to set up this system. We need the festivals to get on board, because we need their infrastructure. We need the volunteers, to change something that they usually do. They have to sell beer in a different way. We designed a cup. It is plastic, it is reusable, so it can be washed. Tuborg, they designed a big washing bus where they could wash a huge numbers, but then it's a huge setup, but it went so smoothly and everybody was happy, and we reduced a lot of waste, and overall, people, they got the experience that they wanted from the festivals, and they got their beverage. They got it in a single-use cup. It had a refund. It was returned if it was lost. Somebody else picked it up and returned it. So, it was, it sounds easy peasy, and it wasn't that difficult. And, these are the types of, business models that we want to see in the future, reducing single-use plastic waste.
Yeah, and with lots of fun going on in parallel. So yeah, I'll definitely be up for one of these.
Again, just a quick comment, because I think that's a way of the campaign that Anna showed. We did a very similar way here, but we included one more step that was the connection with the recycled content. So we collected the after the ones that would like not to keep those material, and we recycled them and transformed the material for plastic product for another company. So you could work on the whole value chain in this kind of campaign. It was a very good example from Annie.
Yeah, and it's also important to think about the circular economy as not one closed loop, right? But several closed loops that connect to each other. So you might have a chain of loops, right? So yeah, these campaigns, I know you said it was a challenge, but not that hard. So what advice would you give then to someone who's starting out, wants to create a campaign to engage their stakeholders or their employees and get them to take action on sustainability? What are the most important things you need to think about when you're creating a campaign, really?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And obviously the answer depends on where you are and who you are in the supply chain. But for one thing that I would advise is to avoid creating dependencies. Make sure that what you do is self-sustainable in a way where people, they can sort of take action themselves and they don't rely on you to supply them with some kind of organization or something around the campaign. And one way of doing that is sort of, inspiring people to what they can do, because a lot of people they don't see, what is right in front of them. So they need to be inspired. So one thing, obviously, you can clean up and go out and have fun with that. But you could also, make a movie, or you can make a podcast, or you could do an art exhibition of collected waste. There are many ways to contribute into this. And I think people, they need to see all the different ways that you can sort of engage with the issue of plastic pollution. And then I think one thing that's also super important is that you have to be bold. I mean, you have to challenge and question the status quo, because right now what we have with all this waste and the plastic pollution, it's not normal. We've just become accustomed to it, and now we're trying to clean it up. But obviously we have to, turn off the faucet, and that, requires, especially companies like Tubo to be bold, to try and, tap into their core business and see how can we contribute by doing things differently in our core business. So be bold.
That's very good advice, actually. And also what you're saying in terms of giving people practical ways to contribute using their own skills, right? So you're not telling everyone does this one standard thing. You're giving people with different skills, different ways to contribute, to make best use of their abilities, and maybe hopefully also have some more fun while they're doing it, because they feel confident and feel happy that they're making a real contribution to an important issue. Fantastic. So Jorge, what about from your point of view? So you're coming at this from, inside a corporate. What are some practical tips you could give people who are looking to create a sustainability campaign from within their company? So you said before, it's important that it's not a standalone campaign on an issue that isn't relevant to the business. But once you've done that and you've kind of said, okay, this is the issue, then how do you turn that into a campaign and really make it happen?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Jenny. I see that one thing is important. No one could solve any problem of sustainability alone. No one. So it's important to have a broader view on engaging all the stakeholders, and employees, or the team members, as we call them, are very important part of them. But they would like to be included in this kind of campaign with concrete participation from their side, with concrete results. And to get this concrete participation in the result, you have to have a plan that considers it. In order to have a plan that considers, you need resources, of course. So you need the support of the strategy of the business, and you need the experts on that, the people from communication, people from human resource. So the people from sustainability could not do that alone. So this is a very important step. And of course, counting also with external stakeholders, like the campaign that Annie showed. There were clients engaged. There were clients of the clients engaged. There were the ones that they will process the product engaged. So the engagement should be seen in a very broad way. And to do that, you have to have that campaign included in the plan of the communication team, because there are a lot of other things happening in the company. So it do not be disturbing other ways, or in the best way to say is should be included in the whole map. So sustainability should not be seen as a external and funny way to see things. No, should be included in the business, should be included in the long term planning of the communication, of human resource. Everything should be included. And I think that this is the main aspect, in order not to bring shocks with the others. So in order to be very credible also. So in the final tip will be, please do something that the people should engage in a concrete way, not just communicating with them, but include them something to do. The adults like to do something. In the young people, the trend of do it yourself. It's very important. In this moment, we have to revise the volunteer program to include them some aspects very connected with the virtual environment, because we in the COVID, how we will do that, what we have done in the past, in 2019, we have to revise everything. But we give them, even in this situation, we give them the opportunity to do something concrete using the virtual environment. So this I think that will be the tips.
Fabulous. Thank you, Jorge. That actually segues quite nicely into asking Graham to tell us a little bit about how, when you're looking at these recommendations from Anna and Jorge and all the other challenges that one faces when creating employee engagement campaigns, how can running then a campaign through movement purpose help?
Unmute.
Yep. There we go.
Strike one for me. I mean, it's very interesting because one, that the passion and commitment from both organizations are just right there to be seen. And of course, Braskem sounds very much like the perfect movement client, because what we offer is a software platform that allows companies to communicate with their people across geographies, particularly, and allow them to participate in campaigns that have been designed to support those critical issues that we've been hearing about, and engage those people. One thing that we have found is that there are a lot of companies, and large companies, that have spent time thinking about their social purpose. They've thought about the values they stand for, but aren't quite sure, don't quite have the resources to adequately and effectively communicate, particularly where an organization might have made a statement or declared a strategy, but the fact is that the people in Sydney don't quite know what the people in Stockholm are doing, and therefore it still tends to be rather top down. And what the movement platform looks to do is to democratize that process and engage a community of team members around the world who can talk and then be inspired to create local activities. So we offer a range of actions that are embedded in the video content that we show. And that means that these actions result in there being something of interest to everyone, and they're regularly refreshed with new opportunities for engagement. So for example, team members can take a lifestyle pledge, they can commit to volunteering, they can attend a talk, they can make financial donations that are often matched by the employers, which is typical. But we also include actions where employees can organize local activities, as I said. So in marine plastics, companies can organize local cleanup events. We provide links to local NGOs to provide guidance and support. Another critical success factor is measuring impact and reporting on it. This is a central feature of the movement platform. So participants are able to see their own impact and build their own impact profiles, and then the overall impact at a company level. And of course, campaigns can be private for employees or public to other stakeholder groups. Because if you have a great campaign, why not make it available to your customers as well? And each campaign includes a communications package to guide corporate clients, because some have very highly developed internal resources, others don't, which can be used to organize timelines, messaging, organizing focus groups, and ensuring as best we can that everything progresses smoothly. So I think we're all on the same page. The key is how to best communicate the campaigns.
Absolutely. So coming into this more forward-looking piece where we're bringing all these learnings together based on all this great work, I was hoping you guys could share some of the kind of most interesting trends and ideas that you're seeing on engaging stakeholders, perhaps things that you might be incorporating in your future campaigns. So I don't know, Jorge, could you start us off?
Yes, of course. I think it's a very, very important point, what is coming and what is most important. I would say that campaigns, I'll repeat myself, but should be seen as included in a strategy. And the way to engage the team members, I think the most powerful is to engage in the business strategy. So when you define targets and you include the team members to discuss the targets, when you follow up the targets and you get the team members to discuss how it's going, and when you recognize somehow and rewards the team members when you achieve the targets, or comparing the level of achievement with their remuneration, and you recognize them, you are engaging them the best way, because they will be willing to participate, they will be deciding what to do, how to do, and will be part of the results. So this is I would say that's the best way to engage the team members. And campaigns should be seen included in this way of managing of the businesses and the way that you do your things. I think that this is the main point. And when you do that, you offer concrete opportunities, and also I'll say you could say that this is seen as credible. Again, should be credible. campaigns should be credible, inside and outside.
Yep, couldn't agree with you more. Anna, what about you? Have you got any trends and insights that you could share with us on how to make these campaigns evolve over time?
Yes, I do. So it's quite interesting how this agenda has, evolved tremendously and is going super rapidly. We went from, plastic pollution in the ocean, and everybody knows, that's a problem. But then, we try to take it up the value chain and, see like where's it all coming from? 80% of it is coming from, activities on land. And what we want to do is sort of make people question the status quo of, all the packaging that is, that we're seeing every day. Single-use plastic packaging, that is about half of the world's global plastic production at this time. And, it goes without saying, obviously that is way too much. That's never going to be sustainable, no matter how much of that we can collect and recycle. It's never going to be sustainable if you look at the, projection growth rate of this. So what we do, obviously, we want, civil society citizens to be engaged with this, because what we need to change this is like the new business model that is, closed loop systems like the two-ball cup, and we need stronger regulation. So we need people to engage, with becoming aware that these are resources that we are draining and we're using too much of it. Obviously, it also has to be fun. And we have to figure out new ways of doing that. And one thing that we're seeing is like this whole idea that has also been mentioned here is about gamification. How can you engage your target audience? Because as Peter said, I mean, if you have the best campaign in the world, but if it's not being communicated, who's going to know? I mean, who's going to engage with it? So figure out where is your major audience, and then how can you, make it fun for them? And what we're seeing is, this whole idea of gamification in various ways and many levels is a way that you can sort of especially reach the younger audience, because they're going to be, the consumers of the future. So we need them to be attracted to this agenda. We need them to have fun with it. We need them to reflect and start asking these questions. Why all this single-use plastic? Where are all the zero waste solutions? That's what we want. And we see, gamifications as a mean for that. And sort of segue onto that is very closely related. Basically, it's how can we, work with like more cultural narrative hacks of, changing, the status quo, making the normal seem weird and the weird seem normal. And that is, you can do that by, for instance, like right now, if you walk into a supermarket, you see everything is covered in packaging, and that's the norm. We don't really question the norm because we just, we're used to it. But what if you could sort of, make that, come to life, either in a normal supermarket, you walk in and then you will have like a whole section or something that is different from what it usually is. So it will be, without packaging, like a whole zero waste, zero packaging section, or it can be done, in a virtual reality, some kind of installation. It just basically has to be some kind of setting that people, they enter, and then they have a different experience. They're puzzled, they're wondered, they're curious. What is different about this context? And then they will engage with it, and they will have an experience that will make them reflect. That's about this whole, hacking the current narrative. So those are two trends, the gamification and the narrative ones that we're seeing and that we're incorporating into our work.
Really interesting. Thanks, Anna. And Graham, what about you?
Well, getting away from campaigns and plastics, I see two emerging trends that are quite important. The first, particularly relevant, and that's that there's a real behavioral shift taking place in the corporate world as companies recognize the need to reconcile making money with making a positive impact on the world. So they're moving toward defining their social purpose and embedding that in their operating strategies. And you can make a case that in the future, social capital might be as important as financial capital, because most competent and well-managed companies are able to find capital. There's a battle for talent coming, and the battle for human talent is critically important. And people want to work for values-based, authentically values-based companies. And so I think it's essential that companies step back and think hard about this journey towards social purpose. So that's that's kind of a real emerging trend that I talk to a lot of people about. You know, companies need to develop campaigns around the issues they care about. And of course, I'm shamefaced enough to say that Movement can help them communicate with their teams in a very effective manner around interactive video, which is the best means of communication, particularly to millennials and Gen Zs who are used to ingesting content via video, not via the written word. I think a second trend is a post-COVID reassessment of the nature of work itself and the employer-employee relationship. And in an era of remote working, how do companies maintain a sense of community and support corporate culture? How do they support staff who are struggling with mental health issues, which is a crisis of huge proportion that's coming? And so these are very fast evolving and complex issues. That's a couple of observations at a macro level.
Thank you very much, Graham.
Could I make
please.
a comment on that?
Of
Because
course.
I think that the point that Graham made is very important. It is related to the integration of business and campaign and the engagement of people with the purpose. The business purpose is really very important. In 2013, we revised our business purpose to say that Braskem would like to improve people's lives by creating sustainable solutions from chemicals and plastics. So this is driven all of what we do. So this is very powerful. Really, I really agree with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's funny that I was still at Braskem at that time. And when you work in sustainability, you kind of turn around and go, really? Well, yeah, of course, that's, you know, it feels like what's going to change as a result of having defined this purpose in this way. But actually, yeah, Jorge, as you're saying, it changed a lot of things and it made a lot of sense to a lot of people that before were perhaps a bit disenchanted with their roles and you know, where they were, how they were contributing to society. And once they understood that as the purpose of the company and then could see how a lot of these programs the company was running was connected to that, it really started to drive a lot of motivation, engagement, and creativity, right?
But I think I mentioned authenticity, and I think that this isn't a game of greenwashing. This is an issue of it being deeply embedded in a company's DNA. And it's clear with Braskem that it's absolutely there. I think that authenticity is a critical factor.
Yeah, absolutely. But this is also that issue you guys were talking about before about communication, right? Because it can be there, but if people don't hear it and don't see it, then it's almost like, you know, it's not there. And once you put it into words and you communicate it to people, then they really see, okay, this is serious. This is what we're doing. And so I want to be a part of this. So it all comes together with the communication, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So I think we are at a good time now to go into Q&A. And thanks so far, Graham, Anna, and Jorge for your insights and for sharing this experience with us. Before we go into questions and answers, I just wanted to make a special request to our participants. We are running a series of webinars under this topic of sustainability campaigns that make a difference, each webinar being focused on a specific issue. Our next one is most likely going to be blue carbon. And we'd really appreciate your help in making sure that these webinars improve over time. So we'll be sending you a feedback survey and we would be very thankful if you could respond. It should take a couple of minutes. It's 5 very straightforward questions. And also, obviously, if you want to know more about the work that we're doing, Movement and 3B Impact, then we'll be available through email and the feedback survey. We'll also have links for you there. So opening up to questions from our participants, we had a question from Ruth Axelrod. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Ruth, your surname, about what we can do as individuals who are not connected, perhaps to a big company or organization. So maybe that's something that Anna and Graham, before you were saying, Movement has, it started off with an enterprise product, but I think this perhaps raises that question of, if I'm not connected to a company, is there something that movement is going to offer me?
Well, if Ruth can wait 24 months, quite possibly, because the original vision of the founders of the company was to create a consumer site that would be an ecosystem, if you like, where individuals can actually go watch curated social impact film, all linked to actions, all linked to NGOs, and with a very, very strong element of gamification, which Jorge mentioned, with and Anna too, around this making it fun with gamification. So ultimately, the movement consumer platform will be a place where individuals can go to learn, to take action, to develop their own personal impact profile. And we're thinking that movement might be sort of the social handle for your impact life, as opposed to LinkedIn for your professional life. Think of it in those terms. So we're not lacking in ambition. But it would also be a case where a platform where NGOs would go to launch campaigns, where documentary filmmakers would go to crowd fund their films. So that's where we're looking to get to. And we just felt that from a purely commercial perspective, because of that behavioral shift that I referred to, there was a real opportunity to help companies, and through the companies, help their people. So B to B to C.
Yeah. And Anna, do you have any recommendations for Ruth? How concerned citizens who aren't connected to an organization or a company can contribute, get involved?
Join her organization straight away.
That could be one thing. Well, I mean, obviously, because we can't, I mean, we're an organization and we are, focused on, specific strategic priorities, and, we can't be present everywhere. And that's why exactly that we need more people to engage with the agenda, to get on board. And then it comes down to what can you do as an individual? And as I mentioned before, there's so many things that you can do. But then again, it has to be, it has to be communicated. And this is where we have, can have the role of being like the megaphone. We would like to, talk about and, communicate on our platforms, because what's inspiring for other people is other normal people doing things, whether it's, making a movie, or it's doing a cleanup, or it's teaching kids something about, natural resources and plastic pollution. That's where, we can be that extended hand of communicating about this. So hopefully that can inspire other people to create, the ripples in the water. So that's one thing. But if it's more, we work very, very much upstream and on this whole, how can we prevent, how can we stop the flow of single-use plastic packaging? And that's where the consumers, they have so much power, with their purchase power. So, that could be, so, you can start asking more questions and demand better solutions from, the corporations. So when you, if you ever get a coffee to go, you can ask, why don't you guys have a reusable take back cup with a refund on that you can wash? Then we wouldn't have that single-use cup. And then maybe the more people that ask that question, they will, start to understand that there is a demand for a new market for reusable cups. Or you can ask in the, in the supermarket, why don't you have more bulk solutions, again, with some kind of containers that is engaged in a system that will have some kind of refund on. So that's where you start, to work more upstream and, ask and demand for better solutions that will drive the industry to sort of provide that. Because if there's a demand for it, they will provide it. So that's like different end of the scale, depending on, your interest and, what you want to do, basically.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. One of the things that I've actually really enjoyed about working with Movement is the fact that when we're creating campaigns, we're looking out for the NGOs that are providing tangible opportunities for people to get involved, and giving that, creating that connection, which as someone who used to manage, sustainability in-house with Jorge Soto, it can be really valuable, because setting up a partnership between a corporate and NGO, it takes quite a lot of time and resource, right? Anna, you probably also know this from the NGO side. So I quite like that. that we're creating this bridge between corporates and NGOs and obviously the individuals, and making, connecting everyone a lot more easily. And it will be great when we have this public facing element that Graham was saying, where people who aren't associated to an organization can start to take part in a movement campaign. I think we have a bit more time, but not that many questions coming through right now. But I did have a couple of questions that I wanted to add if we had some time. And one of them was for Jorge about Braskem's 2040 vision. And you're basically saying, you're working towards a world where 100% of plastic packaging is reused, recycled, or recovered. What does this then mean for single-use packaging?
Yes, thank you, Jenny, for the question. And I think that's important to us to understand that each decision would have some impacts. So, for example, I understand the issue of packaging should be seen as a solution when it's packaging something. Overpackage is not a solution. But if you don't package a food, this food could be last few period. And if you package the food, it could have a longer period for life. So what is the balance? Because the production of the food also bring impacts. If you lose this food, you bring a lot of impacts, environmental and social impacts. So there is always this analysis that we should do, considering the whole life cycle of the products, the whole set of impacts that we have, and you could compare what are the best solutions or better than the others. So I would say that this should be always in our mind. For us, this is why we are engaged in this process, because we have done a lot of analysis of this kind of analysis. And we understand that plastic is part of the solution, as I mentioned it. Well, because the content, when you package something or when you do something, when you compare plastic with others, considering the whole set of impacts, other kind of material, you'll see that plastic will be the best one, because the amount of material that is used for that need is lower in plastic, because the characteristic of the plastic is density. Low density means less material, and then you have less impact. This is because the amount of material is related to the impact that the material the need provokes. So this, having that in mind, we understand that we should work to solve the best, the other part. What is good destination? And as Annie mentioned, the problems are on land. When we do not manage well the plastics residues. This is why Braskem is committed to work on that with the whole value chain to achieve those targets. But we don't have just targets for 2040. We have targets for 2025, as I mentioned. We didn't produce any amount of plastic recycled content 2 years ago. Last year we produced 9,000. In 2025 we produced 300,000. In 2030 we will be produced 1 million tons of CO2 of plastic, of products with recycling content, because we understand if we do that, we'll push the value chain in order to use this kind of material, and then we could help to solve the problem of inland. The problem is mainly inland. It involves the whole set of the value chain, members of the value chain, and the consumer also, as Annie mentioned. The consumer has an important role on working on that, because if you don't participate as a consumer on the decision process and also in this destination process, the value chain could not be solved also. So this is what we are doing, and why we understand that it's important to do, including that in our business.
Yeah, getting the economics of recycling right, I guess. We have a question from Isabel Pelaez, and I think Graham might be the best placed person to answer. She's asking, how can you engage the board members or shareholders to start their journey on the circular economy? Because some of them think that there will be a high cost associated to this transition. So I guess Graham and Jorge are probably good to get this.
I think that pressure, depending on the nature of the company, that pressure might be coming from shareholders, for example. It might be coming from staff. It might be coming from customers. But in an industry as critical as plastics, for example, it would be stunning to believe that a board of directors or a C-suite was not already focused like a laser on these issues if a company is to have a successful future, particularly when you align profit and loss with making a positive social impact. So I think the pressure is coming from advocacy groups, it's coming from stakeholder groups, it's coming from all angles, and it simply cannot be ignored. Consumers, by their very actions, can have a significant impact on the fortunes of a company. So, Jorge, I don't know if you would agree with those comments, but that's my general view.
Very good. And perhaps I could add, Graham, that the solution is is related to work together with others, and sometimes together with the ones that are pressuring you. So we have a lot of partnerships with NGOs here in Brazil. One of them is related to the inclusion of waste pickers. You know, perhaps developing countries has a lot of waste pickers engaging in this solution of what's happening with the waste. And they live with this kind of situation. And what we are doing with another NGO, helping them to be more professional and to have more money from that kind of solution. So this, I think that this was an NGO. And another NGO, we are working with that in the educational side of the consumer, because we understand that the consumer should be educated when he's young, when he's a kid. So we are working with them and saying, please, when you decide to consume something, ask yourself, do you need this? How to use it? From where you are buying it? And what will you do at the end? So this is the kind of discussion that we should engage the kids and the teenagers in order to them to be in the future better consumer than we are today. Because this is an important aspect of engage with the ones that are also pressuring you in order to find together solutions.
And I think we mustn't underestimate the understanding that millennials and Gen Zs have for the power of collective action. So the whole notion of advocacy going forward is a very, very powerful force.
Most certainly. We have a lot of questions now, but we won't have time to cover them all. So just for a final question, I hooking in from this, you know, how do you get the senior leadership brought into this topic? I guess one way, because we're discussing campaigns, is thinking about what's the benefit, right, of involving your employees through campaigns to the company. So, for example, for you, Graham, sort of as a former CEO and board member to several companies, what value do you see to the company in engaging employees through sustainability campaigns?
Well, I think engaging employees through these campaigns on issues that are central to the mission of the business helps employees feel as though they're part of a whole, they're playing a part in delivering on the company's strategy, that the leadership of the company is listening to them, it's willing to be brave enough to listen and accept the direction that employees would like to go, as long as they're aligned with the overall objectives of the company. It's very, very powerful. And once you've harnessed that power, employees feel prouder to be part of the company, and they can see how it's possible to be a positive force. I think that leads to high levels of engagement, high levels of productivity. People are more inspired. And in a nutshell, when employees believe and support these causes and believe them to be authentic, employee engagement levels improve. You win the battle for talent, which is what I talked about. Turnover reduces and companies become more productive and ultimately more profitable. So it's a virtuous circle.
That's a very good note to finish on. So just give Jorge and Anna to make any final comments that they'd like to make before we wrap up. Anna?
Yeah, sure. Yes, again, just thank you for the invitation to participate in this. What we're thinking about, is fundamentally changing, the way that we produce things now, and that goes from everything from global food production to plastic to everything else. So hopefully in 20 years' time, the world is going to look very much different from what it looks now. And I think also, to build on what Graham just said about this, how to engage employees. Employees are also just consumers. They're people. They're parents. They want to have more purpose in what they do, and we're also seeing people within organizations and companies. They're coming to us saying, there's something, going on with our business that you should look into, because I think that they want their businesses to do better. So I definitely see this tendency of people becoming more aware and want the ambition to go up. Yes.
Yeah.
And just to echo Annie, I think we should all do something. The situation that is around us is unsustainable, and including developing countries all around the world. There is a role for all the kind of stakeholders in order to do that, and we should work together. We should collaborate. We should find solutions together, because no one will solve this alone. So we should engage business, government, and NGOs, the society in general. All of us should work together in order to find solutions, because, as Annie was saying, the future should be different and will be different, but depends on this movement that is for everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We've come to the end of our time, and it's been a fantastic conversation for me, at least. I hope it has been for all of our participants. I hope that all the wisdom and experience that Anna, Jorge, and Graham have shared with us will help you along your journey of getting others engaged in the circular economy and building really successful campaigns. Thank you for the great questions for those who participated. And thank you also, obviously, to our speakers for making the time to prepare and to participate in this session and sharing their materials with us. It was a huge pleasure to have this conversation with you. And a final thanks to Movement, who's sponsoring this session. If you'd like to know more about Movement Purpose Platform and how it might fit in with your plans, then let us know via email or our feedback survey. We'd love to help you out. We've got the feedback survey being sent to you via email, and you'll also receive a link of the recording once we've tidied it up a little bit. But it was fantastic to have you, and thank you, everyone.
And thank you, Adiane, for organizing at the 3B. You did a great job, and nice to meet you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.